Hey everyone, welcome to the NORD Q&A for the 27th. I'm trying new things with the stream, so hopefully that was a better way to start than just going straight live. Oh, that just reminded me, I need to turn off my Nightbot doing the bootcamp stuff because we are no longer at the bootcamp. After all this, after all the time I had to prepare, I didn't change that. So you'll have to give me a second. Commands. Okay, hopefully shouldn't be more of the boot camp. I will talk about the boot camp, of course, but I'll get to you guys' questions first. So I don't know what it's doing in terms of stopping people spamming and stuff like that. I will have to have a look at it. Let me know if there's more of a problem. I didn't see the message that actually came up. It just... Okay. Right. So first question, Saboteur. Did you get Munich craft beer? Saboteur, sorry. No, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get any Munich craft beer on the Sunday when we were traveling back. I actually had a little bit less time than I thought, and I was still a little bit ill from the week, so we didn't actually go in and get any craft beer. Is it possible that NORD will scrim LEC teams? Yes, we have actually LEC team booked, but not on stream. So I'm not sure if we will be able to... Oh, goodness gracious me. Okay. I have no idea what that just was. And it was really, really loud. Okay. That's a problem. Something else I've got set up that I've accidentally set up that is now ruining everything. Okay. How do I do that? Okay, sorry. This is gone from very interesting start to absolutely scuffed. Okay, you didn't hear anything. That's good because it was an alert that was incredibly loud on my side and I could not hear anything. So I will have to I'll have to work out what the hell is going on there. Okay. I found an extra chatbot which is maybe doing something, but I'm hoping. Okay, right, this is well, we'll see if that helped. Sorry, right, I'll get to it. So, no, didn't have any craft beer. Yes, we have an LEC scrim booked, but it's not going to be on stream. So there might be a case in the future where we can get some teams that are willing to scrim us. That could be that they're more likely to stream it if we're doing evening blocks. That is a possibility. But for a full day block so far, I think we will get some, but probably not people doing it on the stream. How has it been working with an influencer team compared to other teams? In terms of the games being streamed, that's been a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a thing to get used to. For example, me and Thomas were talking the other day, as you probably heard if you're listening to the stream on the bootcamp, about ways to simplify the draft and ways to make our draft a little bit more consistent and consistently getting better results. And a big part of that would be to go into the scrims knowing exactly what we want to pick and in what order. And so we talked about it, how we would set that up, who we would, get to think about it, all those kind of things. And then forgot that, of course, if we have a specific order and we're public about that specific order, then other teams are just going to be able to use that far more simply. So that is one of the big kind of learnings or things that we're still getting better at in terms of working with an influencer team. The other thing is that Freddie specifically is just super busy and super hard worker. And so that's a bit different, where it's like working with a player who has a job. even though the job is still related, right? He's still playing a lot of solo queue. He's still getting better by streaming and all those kind of things. It is still something where it's almost like balancing someone's job alongside it. So that's another interesting thing that I think we haven't done particularly well so far, but we're going to change some things going forward, and hopefully we'll get better at that. Okay, how does a normal day as a coach look like? Hours of research. It really depends. I don't think there is such thing as a normal day of work for a coach, because it depends on the kind of coach you are. So a normal day of work for me has changed somewhat, but I'm actually going to do a vlog, like a day in the life vlog at some point, but I can go over it now. So what it would be is waking up in the morning. The first thing for me, which again is not the same for other coaches, is reflections. So all the players, all the other coaches that I'm working with have sent me a voice note about what they did on the day before that wasn't involved in scrims and how they felt about the whole day. This is so that we can kind of stay connected despite the fact that we're online. So that's the first thing that I do in my day. That can take up to an hour, but it can also take a lot less. Then it's prep work. So that does include like hours of research, or it includes meeting with other coaches and working with them, or it might include literally just planning a document. Then there is also stuff where I'm talking with players individually or doing things with players individually. Then it's getting ready for scrims in any other way. Then scrims start. Then we go through scrims, and then normally at the end of the day, I like to be done when scrims are done, so that I can have kind of my evenings back. So that's kind of a normal day for me, but it's going to change going forward. I'm going to do a lot more streaming, and I'm going to start streaming, reviewing pro games. So straight after this, we're actually going to go into reviewing the LEC games from yesterday. And when I say review, I will do it with you guys, ask me questions in the chat. But other than that, it'll be kind of similar to how I would do it myself. I've talked before about not confusing play or relaxation hours with work hours. So when I'm just watching the LEC on the couch with friends with a beer, I'm not counting that as work. But when we do it together, when we do it, after this, I'm going to be pausing, going back and forward, re-looking at plays, saying, I don't know why they did this, but I'm also going to be going fast through the other stuff. So we'll try it out. It could be that I move slightly more to the co-streaming type of thing in the future, but that is the kind of hours of research for me. Now, other coaches might play the game. It could be that they might like try things out themselves. For me, that's never really something that I would count as work. So if I am playing the game during a day, it's just with friends, it's just for fun. Or I played an Earth this morning in between a couple of the other things that I was doing. So the morning starts with reflections, then it's like admin type stuff, then it's meeting with other coaches. And if this was a professional team and we had a bunch of professional coaches rather than a bunch of part-time coaches working, it would probably be, that would be a decent part of my morning. Then it's preparing for scrims, then it's research, and then it's scrims. And the actual timing of each of those things is different. I also go to the gym. Most mornings, I either go to the gym or I'm going to start going for cycling rides now that it's getting a bit warmer in Lyon. So that's a rough day, but I'm going to do a daily vlog at some point as well, so you can see it in detail. Are you happy with the results so far? Yeah, I think so. I mean, the first game, which we've spoken about quite a few times already, was always going to be difficult for us. Lost Returns have been playing together since November, so having them as our first opponent is always going to be a challenge. Not only are they the strongest team aside from us on paper, but they've also been playing together a lot. So we made a lot of the mistakes that you often make when you start to get them together as a team. And that's completely fine from my side of things. So the game looked quite one-sided, but there were windows for us to turn it around. But to be honest, it's just those simple things that we'll fix by just gradually playing together. So as you'll see our scrims now, they're quite different from what they were at the time, which means I think we have a much better shot if we both end up keeping our win streaks up and meeting each other further down the line. How was the last week? What's your opinion about the team and communication? I think it's getting much better. The communication is getting much better. It was really good to see everyone in person. The roster is just so, I mean, to be quite honest, they're my favorite roster that I've ever worked with. I think they're all really come in with the exact right mindset. They're really open to trying out new things, but they're incredibly professional and incredibly consistent and disciplined, which is really, really nice. So yeah, that's been so good, and that was a huge part of the week. And there was some things I think that we didn't do particularly well from the organization side of things, as in the organizing of the boot camp. There wasn't enough information I think we had going in, and so there wasn't a proper schedule. Also, what we wanted from the boot camp was slightly different. Myself and the organization and people actually doing the planning. But these things happen. It's the first time we've done one together, and future ones will be better and will be clearer. And there's a lot of learning from that. So last week was really fun, and it was great to meet everybody. There was one exercise that we did together off stream, which I think was very, very, very good. And we're going to continue that a little bit off stream during the time. And I think, I think it was really, really good. What's your opinion about FlyQuest also wanting to stream their scrims? Well, yeah, we talked about this yesterday. I think this is the way things are going to go. I think 1 or 2 days a week, every team's going to start streaming. There's just such little downside to it, in my opinion, especially when we're doing Fearless. You don't give all that much away. As I think Whippo even said, people are letting us play the same thing that we played in Worlds. So it's not like they're shocking anyone already, so people are giving them that, knowing they'll take it and thinking that they have a plan into it. So streaming 1 or 2 days of scrims, I think is completely fine. And I think it's fantastic fun. And I think it's really good for everyone's brand. It's really good for the organization, and it's really good for the scene, because it's one of the things that we can do that you can't do in sport. And, it's one of the things that we should take advantage of, basically. So I love it, and I hope that they do it. I hope that people agree to it. And if you're FlyQuest in NA, you have the social weight to make that kind of thing happen. We just need G2 to be interested in it, or maybe not now, Fnatic to be interested in it in Europe, and maybe we'll start doing the same. I think it is the way that we'll go. The way that I would describe it is, even if people are slow to adopt, I don't think anyone will go back. If you start streaming 1 scrim a week, I don't think you'll ever get to the point where you'll want to stop. So it's not a case of if for me, it's just a case of when. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my read on it. Explain my tattoos, please. Yeah, I can. So I have 4 different tattoos. Can't see if I can. There's 2 here. Sorry, 3. 2 here and 1 here. This is currently, although I'm actually considering about getting some more. And they all represent my brothers. So I have 3 brothers. They all have a different significance around that. So for example, this one was a brother who was a musician for a long time. And so it's a voice recording of saying his name in a waveform. One of the other ones has lived in China for quite a while. And the last one is into computers and coding and stuff like that. And it's his name written out in binary. So those are my tattoos. It was really fun designing them, actually. I do graphic design for fun on the side. And it was really interesting to give that a try and experiment with it. Obviously, it's very permanent. It took me a long time to get my first one. I think I drew it on myself every day for like at least a week to make sure that I would actually be interested in it. But once I got one, I really like them. So like I say, I'm experimenting with the idea of doing a couple more, but I need to finish the designs first. There's one that I've been thinking about for a long time. And then there's one that is a bit more recent that I would want to get. Super busy. He just wants to fuel his LOL addiction. Yeah, it can be both. He can be super busy, super hardworking, and also be fueling his LOL addiction. But yeah, I mean, he wakes up every morning and does a bunch of work meetings, and then goes into a huge long stream pretty much every day. So that's the part that's hard to balance, and not something that we've done perfectly by any stretch so far, and something that we're going to get better at going forward. How do you estimate your chances at winning the split in NLC? It'd be really interesting when we play Lost Returns again. Like I said, if we both keep winning, we'll meet them again. They're on the other side of the bracket to us, of course, so we'll meet them in the upper bracket final. And that'll be a really good match. And I'll obviously have a better judge of our chances after that. I think absolutely we can. I think probably they're still the favourites. They're a very good team, and they're a little bit further along than we are. So if you ask me, if all these rosters stay the same, what are our chances at winning spring or winning summer. I think it's much higher than winning winter, but still, I think we're already coming close to 50-50, and I'd like to push it further than that by the end. Ask your parents for more brothers. Yeah, then I can get more tattoos. That's how it works. But the other ones are going to be a little bit different. One is going to be a reminder of what is probably my favorite speech, which is called "This Is Water" by David Foster Wallace, which you should absolutely go and listen to after the stream, of course, if you want. I think it's really, really interesting. I think it's very powerful, but it also is something that takes time and takes effort and takes reminders. And so having a reminder of that, I think, is a really nice idea. I haven't exactly nailed down the idea of what it would be, which is why I've been wanting to get it for ages and not actually getting it. And then the other one is going to be something around Camus, but I'm not sure exactly what at this stage. How many times to analyze their games? I don't know if you mean... sorry, I don't know if you mean Lost Returns games, but I'm going to assume you do. We spent quite a while looking at their games already, and we will spend more. We have a coach who does that specifically. And so, for example, in the first week, he actually watched all of their scrims and didn't watch all of our scrims. For me, we've talked before about scouting, and I think that the way that we do scouting in esports needs to progress or needs to change, because it's kind of the same for most teams as it was when I was in the LEC like 6 years ago, whatever it is now. So from my perspective, I think we should try and be a bit more sophisticated. We have all these stats, we have all these numbers, but the downside that you have from my point of view is it's not about the stats, it's about how you can actually translate them into something that's useful on the Rift, like when you're actually in game. And so what I think we're going to focus on as much as possible is identifying what the soul of the team is. Like if we do this, they have a considerably less chance of winning. So if we break this part about their play, then it's going to be really good for us. And that's the only thing you need to remember. Now, identifying what that is really hard. When I was on, when I had, Chris Duffman on the Coach Talk podcast, he talked about this as well. He talked about, he likes to do scouting based on how the opponent thinks, not based on how they set up a certain objective, but based on how they think about the game. Because if you can analyze that, then you can really get useful things. You can say, okay, look, this team is always going to play high tempo, always going to play through bot. Then it doesn't matter, you don't need to have, here's proof of it, here's their forward percentage, here's their dragon percentage, here's their grubs percentage, all that kind of thing. It starts to muddy the water, honestly. And as coaches, I think when we've done scouting in the past, we've done it a bit too much. Like you're justifying your opinions and not just telling the players the conclusions. And I completely understand why. But from my side of things, I want it to be as simple as possible from the player's point of view. So it's like, okay, versus this team, we have to stop them getting grubs. Or versus this team, we have to be ready for the fact that they're going to team fight for everything. Or versus this team, they're always going to gank bot. Those kind of things are useful. Whereas, okay, they have a 72% first grub percentage in games and only a 32% dragon percentage in games. Is like, okay, but what does that mean? Or here's 5 different setups of how they set up Herald. Those kind of things can be useful to have seen for sure, but doesn't necessarily need to be passed on. So this sole idea I stole from Razzie Erasmus. So if anyone's watched Chasing the Sun, you'll hear him talk about it a lot. He's even, before, I think it's before the semi-final, they're playing against New Zealand or something like that, and it's just over and over again, people are bringing him stats and bringing him like, okay, here's this specific play they do, but it's like, no, what is the soul of this team? Like, what's the thing that if we break it, they can't win? And that's a really interesting thing, I think, that we'll explore. We absolutely won't get it right, as with many things, but we'll explore that going forward. How can we simplify the scouting down as much as possible? Maybe each player gets something specific about the person they're playing against, but mostly as a team, I just want one thing. What's the one thing that we need to take into this game? How old am I? I'm 31. So old for esports, young for life. That's what I'd say. I would love if you and Lost Returns made it to the finals, reviewing the games afterwards, make good content and both improve. hard to make happen, but cool. It's double a limb, so if we are the top two teams, that is what will happen. So we if we were to both keep winning, we will play them in the upper bracket final, and then whoever loses will be in the lower bracket final, and then if they win that, we'll both be in the grand final. So we'll play them twice if we really are the top two teams. But of course, Ruddy, especially when you come to the stage, are going to also look strong. And to be honest, a lot of the other teams are definitely teams that we really need to take seriously. So we've got Venom Crest coming up, and then whoever wins out of the other side of our bracket, all of which needs to be taken very seriously, because it's still just best of three at this stage. It's fearless. There's plenty of things that can happen, plenty of things that can go wrong from our side. It's not just a breeze to get there from either of us. I mean, you saw even in their last game, Lost Returns fall really far behind and get into a really losing position against the team that just couldn't quite close it. Can you tell us some anecdotes from the boot camp? Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of specific ones. Oh my goodness. Okay. Even if you can't hear it, I just got this very loud alert again. I don't know what it is for, and I don't know how to stop it. And it's incredibly loud. So we will have to see what that is. And I'm just going to try and ignore it. And it's just going to catch me off guard every second. So maybe if anyone knows Twitch well and knows what it could be, it's like that sound that just happened again. Okay. It's very loud and I can't work out where it's coming from. Okay. Maybe. Okay, right. It does seem to be new follower, if you're saying that. But how do I turn it off? So I used some stuff from this owned Pro to test it out, like you saw in the intro. I've just turned alerts and stuff off on there, but it's still playing. It's just really strange. Like, why can I not decide? It's not on... Okay, wait. All right, good idea. For now, I'll do that. I'll do audio mixer. And I'll mute OBS. So I hope you can still hear stuff, but that's good. We'll do that for now. Right, let me jump back up to where I was before. Right, anecdotes from the bootcamp. I mean, one, me and Matt went for a run, which was really fun. So he's in incredibly good shape, but he went at my pace for, I think we did 6K maybe around Olympic Park. And he was saying at the time, like, oh, this is a good pace. And then when we're done, I was like, okay, I'm going to stop. And he said, okay, yeah, let me just go and run some intervals. It's like, just quickly need to go and actually do some training. No, but that was really fun. Then we went to dinner with some people from Red Bull on the last day to get pizza. That was also very good. What else? I mean, most of it you were seeing. So the part that I really loved that you didn't see was we had an interview with each of the people from the with each of the people on the team. So starting with myself and then going through the players. And the reason that wasn't streamed is because we do a bunch of exercises that are about being quite open and quite vulnerable. And obviously we don't want to broadcast that. So it wasn't recorded in any way. There was only the team and very close people from the organization there. And it was really about kind of being open and vulnerable and talking about your real life and talking about struggles and then going through teams and all that kind of thing. And it was really, really good. I mean, we didn't get a chance to go through everybody, unfortunately, but I thought it was fantastic. And the players their approach to it was perfect. There's always a thing when you have an exercise like that in mind that you really need people to buy into it, and you really need people to be brave enough to be open about it. And actually, Matt was the first person who went, and he was just exactly what I would just want as a coach. But I'm not going to force someone to do that. Of course, I'm just saying, look, this is what I think the exercise is for. But I'm not going to, I can't make people be exactly honest with all the questions, because I did obviously let them say, I don't want to answer that, but no one actually did. And that was fantastic. So not really an anecdote in terms of a nice little story, but something that we did on the bootcamp that was really special and really good. I thought that was perfect. The one thing that I did do, which is useful if any of you are coaches out there, is that I had Victor actually interview me first. I think that's always a good idea for two reasons. Firstly, you shouldn't ask people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. So if you're not willing to be open and vulnerable, you shouldn't be asking anyone else to be. And secondly, I don't know if anyone's seen Spinal Tap, but my thing with culture is whatever you want in the culture, you have to be that turned up to 11. Like, you have to be, if I want them to be open with me, I have to be super open with them. And if I want them to be on time, I have to be early, all those kind of things. So that's something where for me, it's a really big deal. And it was fantastic that it just took so well, which is great. Team atmosphere or individual skill, which in your opinion would be more important in terms of winning splits? It's a good question. I think the way that I would describe it is you have to have a certain amount of individual skill. So yes, something going on at DRX, there was something in the water that meant they were just super overperforming in that one situation at that one moment with the right meta, all those kind of things. But you still need to, they still have to be professional players. It's not like you could just have anyone make it. They still have to have people with those high ceilings potentially. Zeka, King, and all those kind of people. Well, Zeka maybe is a bit more consistent now, or Piotr even, like super high ceiling, super low floor, and you just hit it right. So I think if you had neither, you need individual skill, but individual skill to a point, and then team atmosphere, team culture, those kind of things are more important. So you can have very high individual skill and terrible team atmosphere, and you'll probably be good at the beginning, and you'll either not progress as quickly as everyone else, or you'll even regress and you'll get worse. But you do need that individual skill first. It's the same, I would say, with like early game, mid game, late game. I think as a team, mid game is almost always more important, but your early game needs to be a certain level of good first. Or another analogy, if people are into fitness, people say, getting in shape or becoming ripped or whatever is 80% diet, 20% exercise. I think that's true, and you can't outwork a bad diet. But I think the slightly more sophisticated analysis of it from certain people would be, the thing is that you can gain a huge amount of those benefits from a good diet just by being simple, just not being stupid, not having loads of sugar, eating enough vegetables. So it's that kind of same idea. So you need to have a certain, I think team atmosphere is important as long as you've got that certain level, if that makes sense. That was actually probably not the best analogy to use considering the question, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Do you prepare differently if you're a favorite to win or not? Yes, definitely. Not necessarily on the second part of your question, which was have a strategic plan versus have a system against their strategy. Although you can be more catered to playing against the specific opponent if you're stronger. But to be honest, if we have a specific strategy that's good against the opponent that we want to play against, then we're going to do it whether we're the favorite or not. So there might be certain strategies that come under the other reason. That means we wouldn't do them if we were the favorite. But in general, if you have a specific strategy, I would use it against the opponent, no matter favorites, massive underdogs, whatever. The thing that I would say in terms of playing against someone that we're supposed to be stronger than or playing against someone that we're supposed to be weaker than is how much risk you take. And for me, you take a lot more risks the bigger the gap is in terms of you being an underdog. If you're the favorites, you don't take risks. You get rid of the weird stuff in draft. You don't be super aggressive in draft. You don't say, okay, look, this comp is super OP if we take this thing on 3 and hope they don't ban what we want on 4. Whereas if you're weaker, if you're the underdog, you might want to go for those risks. So we've done that before There was an example of a game against KC where a whole comp falls apart when I was on Slurry. A whole comp falls apart if they ban the right thing, and they didn't ban the right thing. And so we got what we needed and were able to win the game, but it all would have fallen apart. I would never risk that against the team that we're kind of supposed to beat. And then the next thing is just like, you just want to get rid of the variance if you're in a high, if you're the favorites. That's why I think some of the decisions that we see in the LEC are very strange to me. I see teams, not necessarily this year, I can't think of examples from this year, but I haven't looked into them enough. There was stuff like Seraphine is becoming a really big thing, and it looks ridiculously strong. In the game where you're the like 5th place team playing against the 6th place team, that's not the game to test giving them Seraphine Senna. That's not the game to play with that and see if you've got some weird counter that's super high variance. If you're the 5th place team, that's the game to be like, no, we simplify it as much as possible. We make sure we playing. This is the game that's super important to win. Whereas if you're a 10th place team and you're playing against the top team, fine. See if your weird, I don't know, your weird Blitzcrank Draven lane can beat this thing that everyone thinks is strong because it's super high variance. So that's the way that I would approach differently if you're the favorite or not. And so it does come into the scouting, it comes into how specific you want to be, but mostly because of the variance. So if you have a specific strategy that's good against the opponent you're playing against, if it's low variance, you should play it. It doesn't matter if you're the super favorite or if you're even in terms of skill. Do you think G2 is a title contender this split? In my opinion, they'll prove a lot in spring, but this split is hard for them to win. I am not exactly sure of the format for this split. Are they doing the same as the last format? So it's like 3 weeks and then you're out if you haven't performed, if you're on the bottom one, because I haven't seen yesterday, but they could be in danger of that already. Yeah, I think you can't, if you've got caps, you're always a title contender, I think. And I think BB and Hans have also shown, obviously, that they can do it, and they can do it absolutely to the highest level. So I think we should never rule them out. I think what often happens in the LEC, the first couple of weeks, people get very excited about new things and new teams, and then by the end, it kind of stables out to what you would have predicted. But I don't think that's actually going to happen this split. I think some of the, maybe not necessarily all of them, I think Giant X might come back and then more like in the middle again, but they might not. I hope they don't, to add a bit of variety. But teams like KC, I think, really do look like they are the potential future, which is great. So they might be a bit, over the next years, I think it's something to be really excited about. So we'll say after today, how about that? When we look at G2's games from yesterday, we can actually analyze it and break it down in terms of how they're playing rather than just the results, because that's not something that I've done before. And why I want to start doing it on stream is to get more time to review the games and go in depth. So we will see, I think, after today, which is yesterday's game, if I think they're a title contender or not. Since we had a few games struggling against Gallo, especially if he's mid, why don't we ever play him? Doesn't he fit in most of our comps and ideas of how to play the game? It doesn't fit our champion pools mostly at the moment. I think it's not particularly something that, I'm sure Chachi could play it if we wanted him to, and no way I'm sure would spam enough games on it to make it worth it. But for me, it's not really how we play necessarily as a team, although we do run these dive comps. So if we're running a dive comp, I think it's always worth considering as a ban, even if it's blind and stuff like that, especially because it can flex. But for us in top lane, it's much more like a nullifying pick, I think. And I think especially in the NLC, but even when we go to EMEA Masters, I think Chachi has shown that he can just really take over lanes and absolutely like dumps the people and stuff like that. And so all these picks like Cassante or Rumble and stuff like that, I think is definitely very, very good for us. One of the things that always happens with picks like that is you have to balance, okay, the time it takes for us to invest to get used to playing with it and the player, of course, but also the team. Is that going to be worth it considering how long it will be before it gets nerfed or gets changed or anything like that? So it's always a difficult one, and you have to kind of make a guess. It's not as extreme as this, but at one point, I think in sort of season 5 or 6, someone might be able to correct me, they made some changes that made AD carries not viable. And so everyone was playing. It was like Yasuo, Swain, Vladimir bot, and those kind of things. And no one was playing AD carries except from Uzi's team was. And we made the call early on in that split. Riot won't allow this. They'll change it. They won't let the game just have no AD carries in. And so we will keep playing AD carries. We won't spam those other things. And it was the wrong call, actually, throughout the whole year. There wasn't any AD carries. So we eventually changed our mind, but we maybe missed out on some extra time learning. So at the moment, I think Gallo is fine. It's in a strong spot, but I don't think it's particularly broken or anything like that. I think it's got a good matchup into Rumble, and it's a decent blind into a bunch of the stuff that we play in mid, but I don't think it's something where, despite losing to it in the Lost Returns game, it's not something where it's like something we really need to worry about until we're drafting one of these super heavy dive compositions. Is today scrims? No scrims today. Everyone was traveling yesterday, so we're taking a day off from scrims today, and we will. Okay, I just saw that this chatbot that I tried to turn off is still chatting, which is frustrating. But anyway, I'll try and set it up properly for next time. You're older than me. Could well be. You might be older than me and still have hair as well. It's gone quite early for me. It's same as one of my brothers, although a different one of my older brothers still has a lot of hair. So it's just flipping the coin, and I've got tails, unfortunately. Yeah, I think in terms of Gallo, someone was making the comment, it's not really one of No Way's champs. It's something we touched on. It's quite a different style as well. That's the thing. I think absolutely we could play it and we could learn it, but the question is that better, or getting stronger on Azir, or just practicing the things we know? You know, all those kind of things. Especially when you come into Fearless, you just say, right, okay, I'm still getting the sound. That's absolutely crazy. So I muted OBS and I can still hear the sound, but the fact that you can't hear it makes me think that it has to come through OBS, but maybe that's wrong. So, oh well, we will just make do. And sorry if I keep jumping or keep starting to laugh. It'll be when the sounds happen. Alerts should be all gone, apparently. Chatbot should be gone as well, neither of which is true. So who knows? Do you collect data from scrims or just VOD review? Both. We have data from scrims, both automatically and also some things that we write down ourselves. So we have a sheet, which I can probably show you a screenshot of. Let me see. Okay. So we have Rice, who makes our sheets and all the automation. And yeah, I won't show you a screenshot of it actually, because we don't want to make it slightly too easy for people to scout us. But still, it shows our games, our champs, our win rates, all those kind of things, just quite simply and quite quickly. So that's what we do with that. Let me just check. I'm going to get the Nightbot to leave the channel to see if that makes any difference. But I do think it's other stuff that I was messing around with this morning trying to set up. But it seems like I don't know how it's happened. So I will just have to make do. Okay. You started coaching 5 years ago and improving due to your content. Thanks a lot. That's really nice to hear. That's, as I said before, that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I want to do this. I spent the last couple of years working with coaches individually, which I'm still doing a little bit of, and doing content more around like the theoretical side of things. But to be honest, it's so useful for me to be able to just show it in practice. and just say like, okay, look, this is what it looks like when we try it, because there's so many things, as you'll know, obviously, there's so many things that work a certain way in your head or work a certain way on the page, but actually don't work like that at all when you actually come down to the actual scrims themselves or the practice itself, no matter what you're trying to learn. In your dashboard on Twitch. Okay, like I said, I've tried to I've tried to fix the problem, but I will have to just make do for now. Okay, a question from the YouTube actually. So set scrim goals or review whatever is important in the game. What do you prefer and why? For me, I always prefer setting scrim goals, but I will say that with a few caveats. But firstly, I'll explain why. There are so many things that are so many variables in the game. And if you just talk about the things that are important in that scrim game, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going in the right direction of what is important for your team overall. So scrims are very different, as you'll have seen. There's so many more kills, all those kind of things. So there's a lot of times in scrims where you're getting away with doing things that would be game losing in a competitive sense, because you're missing waves, you're skipping those early steps, all that kind of thing. So if you focus on just what's important in the scrim, then you will miss out on that. So what I like to do is I have goals for the day, and I'm trying to make sure always that I'm as clear as possible with those goals, but they're quite broad. So the goal will be how we generate, we're going to look at how we're generating time. So that's how we're playing on waves, where we're pushing them, all those kind of things. It's not about controlling areas, it's not about taking objectives, but it can still be as broad as that. So for me, that's something that I think works quite well. The other thing about making sure that it's something where you have a goal for the day, or at least an area for the day that you're focusing on, is that it allows you to be a bit more, take a bit of the stress off, because it's less about winning the game because you're working on that specific thing, and less of the intensity. So some scrims, I think the best thing to do is to come in and say, we're going to do everything we can to win, and we're going to sort of treat it like it's a best of 5 and actually try and beat this opponent. And I think that's very useful as well. But in other senses, as I've said before, the game is telling you over and over that it's important to win. You know, your screen goes gray if you lose, all these kind of things. It doesn't feel good to lose. Doesn't matter what you're telling yourself, doesn't matter how disciplined you are. So trying to find any way to combat that is useful. So that's why I think doing scrim goals is more important or better than just reviewing whatever's important in that game. But sometimes as well, we just do a full like exploratory scrim where we're trying new things out and we review just what's important in the game, and we just keep going forward like that. So it's a bit of a balance. For me, I think variety is very good, coming into each day with not just the same goal. I really don't like this like linear periodization that we normally tend towards in esports, where we just say, right, for this week we're working on how we set up Baron because we messed up Baron twice in the games on the weekend. For me, that's just, it's boring beyond anything, but it's also not the most productive way to do things. So I like to have goals for the scrim, but keep those goals sort of more like topics rather than specific goals. And then make sure you're varying what those specific goals are. So it's not just every day this week we're doing the same goal. It's spread out and a bit different. And maybe, if we had a specific schedule, let's say we're scrimming Monday to Friday and we play on Saturday, it's never going to be like this, but let's pretend it was like that, then I would have a goal on Monday and then the same goal the next Monday. So Monday is our day where we're talking about generating time, Tuesday is the day where we're talking about using time, Wednesday is the day where we're talking about team fighting, and Thursday is the day where we're talking about draft, and it's a bit more relaxed, let's say, and then you go into your games Friday, Saturday. So that's my approach in terms of the scrims. What is your favorite team to watch as a normal viewer, and which one is your favorite to watch as a coach? That's a good question. I think over the last few years, the answer has been this pretty much the same, which would be T1. I've been a T1 fan for ever since they had a League of Legends team. I was a big fan of Reaped as a player back in the day on Azubu Blaze and stuff like that. And when they made their first team, I was very interested in it. There was a talk, I can't remember who was even giving the interview. I can't even remember who the rest of that team was, to be honest, who was giving an interview where they were saying Reaper just completely micromanages us. I don't trade in mid unless he tells me that it's okay to. And I thought that was just such a fascinating idea. And so I watched that team during like IMs and things like that. And then because of Monty and Doa and the way that they did the OGN cast, I was already very excited for this young kid that they brought from solo queue who's supposed to be really good. And then in Faker's first ever game, he got an insane solo kill, which probably you've all seen if you didn't see it live. You should go and see it if you hadn't, just because it's a very historic moment. And it's also fun to see how the game has changed. He gets a solo kill on Ambition, who even after that fact was still the person who the Korean players and stuff voted all-star, I think. Oh, well, was it players? Maybe it was fans at that point. But anyway, so that's been my favorite team to watch as a fan for quite a while, although to be honest, mostly I watch European League of Legends or ERLs. So it's hard to say as a fan in this region because it's been a long time that I haven't either been working with a team, in which case I want them to win, or working with a coach, even over the last couple of years. So I've been a fan of the team that my person I'm working with is working for. So that's why it's someone who's not from Europe. The other thing is for them, from my point of view, over the last few years, they're the team that has played differently from everyone else. It's all the scale and it's all the kind of a recipe. So we're just talking percentages. But if we think about, I don't know, gold efficiency, pressure or aggression, and tempo as three different ways that you can build your like team's philosophy. And Gen G has been the best team for like gold efficiency for quite a while. Of course, that comes to do with Chovy, but just everything. That's what they prioritize. It's not that they ignore these other things. It's just that they maybe have, I don't know, 40% rather than just 33. And a lot of the Chinese teams play this like pressure or aggression style. It's the same as Pad and Mac have talked a lot about what they want to do at Vitality, that same sort of idea where you're always trying to play on the front foot. You're always trying to be super aggressive. T1 are the ones who play with time, not like anyone else. So for me, it's like their new way of. I'm trying to mute the next thing of OBS because again the same thing happened. So I got completely distracted. I keep thinking I can just talk through it, but I literally can't hear anything when it starts. So I will fix it for tomorrow. For today, I'm just going to try and keep muting things and eventually find the thing that's making the sound. And hopefully it doesn't mute anything for you. So yeah, that's my favorite team to watch as a player and as a coach, actually. So I think I love the fact, maybe it's not the best for the scene for them to win because it'd be good for a Chinese team to win, I think. But it's really interesting that their way of playing has obviously influenced other people, but they're just so good at it. And if you look at the games where they have bot prio or the games where they get grubs, I'm pretty sure those are the games they always win. And it's not that when they don't have bot prio, they don't win, but I think all their losses in Worlds is when they didn't have prio and bot because they're the best at using that time advantage, which is fantastic to see like real differences in play. It just makes the scene much more interesting when we've got that kind of thing. Are you looking for people to volunteer and help this organization? I think at the moment we'll probably have enough people because, to be honest, some of the people that I originally took on, I think I haven't given them enough to do. And the problem is it's just in practice been very difficult to kind of manage with everyone having a different schedule, everyone having a lot of different experience. And with the amount that I'd had to do with the team, I don't have enough time to get people to the level that I would want them to be before I let them do stuff with the players because I like having a lot of people involved. I like working with a lot of coaches, but I'm still very specific about the stuff that I kind of allow. And I want to make sure that everything we do with the players is at the absolute maximum quality. And we haven't been able to do that even with relatively few people. So you can reach out to someone else if it's not about coaching. From the coaching side of things, I think for this split, we're going to keep things the same as they are. But next split, especially if we have the time in between to do a proper interview process, I'm going to kind of re-examine things because when we started, I've mentioned before, I got the job offer on Christmas Eve and started working on Boxing Day, but there was a week before we were scrimming and there was just too many things to organise to do proper interviews. So we're going to kind of do that again once we come to the off season. Did you become a coach because of your love of LOL or work with people kind of leading a team? That's a good question. I think it's a bit of both. I've mentioned before that originally I was coaching in rugby and football. So I never thought I would be a coach in those things, but I did love coaching in them. So maybe actually it's something I should have explored more, because looking back now, would remember that I loved it and remember that I went above and beyond to do as much of it as I could. I was volunteering for like leading classes, or I went back to my old school and run like a bunch of PE sessions and stuff like that, and all those kind of things. Let me I just realized my Nightbot is still doing things that it shouldn't. Although it seems like okay, well, it's popping up, but I did remove it from the chat, so who knows? Who knows why that is? Yeah, so sorry, back to the question. I do love LoL, and I got very deep into it. I think nowadays I love watching it. I like playing it when I'm playing with friends. So I do still love the game, which is good. But it's kind of a bit of both. I got into coaching regardless of LoL, but I wouldn't have probably tried to make it my career in anything else, I think. Interesting format. From a coach's point of view, do you think Fearless Draft makes the esports experience better? I think it absolutely makes the esports experience better. I think it makes scrims much more fun and much more interesting. I think it makes best of fives more interesting, and it makes draft harder and different. Not just harder, and not all that much harder, I guess. I think just very different. So just kind of slamming your head into the same draft over and over again in a practice day is often what you have to do, and it's never particularly fun, especially if you're a top laner. I was talking with Thomas about this at the bootcamp. He's very thankful for Fearless Draft, because that's normally the one where if there's super high prio things in other roles, they often get like banned and stuff, whereas the stuff that's high picked in top lane is often things that are just really safe, and so the enemy team doesn't really want to ban them away, in which case you end up playing 5 games of Cassante today and then 5 games of something else tomorrow, and it's just really, really silly. So I love it from an esports point of view. I think it's great from a viewership point of view. The thing that's hard is it is very difficult, the like priority and stuff like that. We talked about stats before, but our most picked in any lane is unlikely to be our actually highest priority, because the stuff that we think is highest priority, other teams probably also think is high priority, in which case they're picking it away. And once it's been picked once, that's it. So it could actually be that our third highest priority AD is the one that we play the most, because the first 1 and 2 are like Corki, Callisto, which enemy teams pick away sometimes. And so it's hard to say, like, normally you would just look at the stats and say, okay, look, this is the stuff that we play a lot. This is the stuff that we're good at. But now you can't do that. And so we're trying to experiment with like a weighting system, where if you pick it in game 1, you get 5 points. If you pick it in game 5, you get 1. But then that messes up the stuff that you're doing 4-5, which is like not that useful, but, you know, very specific around the team. So having 5 points for it, very specific around the comps, is a little bit less useful. So we'll experiment with something. At the moment, that's the biggest problem in terms of Fearless Draft. Other than that, I think it's just more fun to practice. And personally, I think it will be more fun to play and adds a lot more variety. And also what we're seeing already is that stuff is coming up in later games in Fearless and now coming up in earlier games. You know, Elite support comes out much later on. Actually, well, it's best of 3, so it's not quite true. But stuff like Pantheon or whatever comes out in games 4 and 5 in the LPL, and then starts to come out in games 1 and 2 in LCK, because you have that excuse to play it on stage, and then you realize actually it isn't just a scrim pick, this is actually really good. And so we learn from that. So I think it's really good for the scene and really, really fun. Have you seen that Noe got back to Challenger? No, I didn't see that. He was 9 LP away in the when he stopped last time, and then the next day we went straight into scrims, and from scrims we went straight to the meeting, so I didn't think he had a chance to play. So great that he got back. Do you have any thoughts on playing majors like Wei in Fearless round 3, especially considering the ADC pool? I think stuff like Wei is really strong in the right situation. And Xerath is the same. We used to play a lot of Xerath when I was on Solari, and we played it a bunch on NORD too. I think it's really good, like 4-5 kind of pick. If you've drafted not that much engage, your whole draft can be lost by like a 5th pick way, for example, which we unfortunately were on the receiving end of at one moment. And I think in that sense, it can be even stronger in Fearless because we will start getting rid of the counters to things. So we're also developing a tool rather than just keeps track of the things that we pick in Fearless. It also keeps track of the things that have limited counters. So when those counters are gone, you can start to see that the priority comes up massively on it. So if a bunch of engage is drafted early on, then it could be that Way becomes even stronger. I don't know if you mean Way bot, but I think that kind of stuff can work as well. Although there's still other ADs you're never going to run out, although it is a bit more pinched because, as you said, the pool is a little bit stronger. What's your opinion on Mel? I've actually yet to play Mel or play against her, but she looks completely broken. I think any new champion that comes out has to be... they aim for like 45% win rate, and I think Mel was originally 52%, which is ridiculous for a release champion. So I think it's really, really strong. For me, I think the Reflect will need to be changed fairly substantially. It looks unbelievably far too forgiving, and the rest of her kit just needs to be toned down. She seems to be just doing way too much damage, too long range, all those kind of things. So right now, I think it's just broken. But if I talk about it in terms of in general, the thing that I would like to see change is the W or the Reflect. I think it's W, to be a bit more of a high skill thing. I don't know why it lasts so long, and I don't know why it reflects multiple things. So Sivir Spellshield, for example, only blocks one thing, which means you can smite it off and you can play around it and all that kind of stuff. Mel's not only blocks multiple things, but also lasts for a really long time. So for me, I think if you made it like a proper Reflect where it doesn't last for a second or however long it lasts, but it lasts for like 0.25 of a second, you have to time it exactly right and it just bounces that thing, then I think it would be really interesting, because having it in the game, I think, is a great idea, new mechanic and all those kind of things. But for me at the moment, it seems to just do too many things and also be kind of unforgiving or too forgiving, I should say. And also offers you much less counterplay other than, just don't throw your spells until she's used it. But it's a bit, strange. I mean, I saw it compared to Fiora's Riposte, which I think is better than comparing it to other things. But Fiora's Riposte is, you have to be stationary and you have to choose where it goes so you can miss the bounce back, and Mel's doesn't seem to have any of those downsides. So you can just be running around for a second with this invulnerability. So I have to look at it more. We don't play it this week. We'll spam it a lot in solo queue, but we don't play it. And then next week we will be playing Mel. So we can start to see more about it in scrims. But I think it's really broken at the moment. Hey, Michelle. Travel back was good. Munich airport's awesome. I'm still not used to traveling in Schengen because even when we were part of the EU and the UK, you still had to do passport control on both sides. So I always forget how easy it is when you don't have to do that and you can just walk onto the plane and walk off. So it was all very, very seamless traveling back. I think getting better on Azir is something that's definitely worth it. Yeah. I think already he's much better on Azir than he was, and he'll keep getting better on it. And I think it's much more likely to fit our style of team, which is good, rather than these like full dive comps, which I think can be a bit vulnerable to a few things in the draft that make it a little bit easy. Is the money that you earn enough to live from? I mean, not really at the moment, but I'm hoping that it will be. I'm in a situation financially where I don't need to worry about money for a while, and I'm taking the opportunity to give this a try. So what I was doing last year and the year before was enough to live from. But I wanted to give this a go instead and see if we can build something that's really special and works for all of us. So that's the hope going forward. For now, no, but ask me at the end of the year and maybe I'll say yes. Hopefully I'll be able to say yes. You also consider long and short-term goals. I'm not sure, Danny, what you were referring to. So if you want to ask, if you have a question, if you want to ask again, then go for it. If we're talking about long and short term goals in terms of the scrim question that we were talking about before, absolutely. Working out what we need to do for today and what we need to do for the week, I think, is very important. If we're talking about champions, again, same. I think either way, it's a good point. Yeah, currently I don't. So it's just stream stuff, and it's stuff that I do in the mornings to sort of make ends meet. What do you think about the concern that side selection is less balanced with Fearless? I think I heard that teams with the first pick is too strong. I'm trying to think why specifically that would be. Why it would be stronger than normal. Because aren't you also denying 2 picks from the enemy if you have red and you go those picks on 2-3? So you can take 2 power picks, which they then can't ever take. I'm not sure. So if you know why people say that, Valuba, then let me know, because it could be that that's true. It could also be that it's one of those things that people just say without specific reason for. Well, I think everyone seems to say that a big reason, a great thing to do with Atakan is instantly go for Baron. And from my point of view, I don't quite understand why, because let's say as you're taking Baron, it doesn't matter if you respawn at base, dying is a really big problem. Like Excel or was it Giant X? Got a turnaround of a whole game because Rogue was doing Baron with Atakan. But that's actually the one situation that you've created where dying with the Atakan buff is just as bad as dying without it, because when you die, the enemy is 4v5 at Baron while it's still happening. So there's one of those things that people always say, and they're like, oh, this is the thing you should do with it. And I've never really heard any reason why. So it could be that blue side is more broken. I can't think off the top of my head as to why that might be. Sorry, I'm reading slowly through the chat as well. So if you do reply, we'll get back to it later, unless I'm already catching up. So I don't know why it would be more OP. It often is stronger anyway. But if you're red side and in the first game of Fearless, you don't do any power bans, then you're going to take 2 and they're going to take 1, and you can deny 2 things from them. So it's the same as normal, I would say, in terms of value of each side, but I could be completely wrong. Please keep it in English. Yeah, I don't understand if you're writing in German, unfortunately. At some point, maybe I'll learn if this team continues and we keep doing stuff in Germany. But for now, yeah. I'm not sure why I've heard it reasoning why in LCK the current games apparently don't really count and statistics don't get written down or something. You mean statistics for the first game I mean, they have a best of 3, so you can win the first game and lose still. I don't know. Yeah, well, we'll have to see what happens with that. My guess is that I can't see a reason why it would be stronger in Fearless compared to normal. So I can see a reason why it's stronger, but that's just the same as if it's non-Fearless draft. So, what do you think about the new Ward rune in Domination Tree? I think at the moment, I like the idea, but I think at the moment, the problem that we've got is quite often, like, it's not really worth changing anything to do that, to get the Domination Tree. So that's, I think, one of the things that's a little bit of a problem where, well, not a problem, but the reason that you don't see it, because if you were going to go Domination, you might take it. But even the haste one, I think, is strong. So at the moment, I think they're maybe a little bit undertuned, but I like the idea of having something that's a bit different, where you could say, right, who's going to be the deep warder? For example, if you're level 1 warding and one person has the deep warding rune, we should always make sure that they're the one warding in the enemy jungle and someone else can ward if we're warding enemy jungle and the river, you know? So I think those kind of things are quite cool. I like the idea that it will be a bit more dynamic, but I think at the moment they haven't found the right kind of balance for it. Fearless seems to favor people who have a wider champion pool, not a single perfect champ. Yeah, that's true. I think Fearless with bans like we're doing, like hard Fearless plus bans, just favors people with a wide champion pool. I think some of the things that we've seen in the past, like either soft Fearless, where you can't play the champion if you've picked it, or this weird thing of hard Fearless but no bans. I think both of those are kind of a bit silly, and they change things in ways that aren't particularly good. Like if you're an OTP, the hard Fearless but no bans is insanely good for you because Baus can pick anything he wants and we can't stop him, but then we also can't take it away because we're not going to play Kane top or whatever. But I think it's much better as it is now. Are there scrims today? No, they're not scrims today. Today's a day off from scrims. It will be on my pinned tweet in Twitter. You can see the streaming schedule of mine, which will also include when scrims are, at least at the moment. What I will do is I'll be giving you guys, you'll be able to see the calendar, which I hope is fixed now, but it won't be actually up there yet. And that way, when the things change, you'll always be able to just look on the day and see like what's going on and when it happens. Because of course, there's other teams, there's us as well. Things might change, but there's no scrims today. There should be scrims tomorrow and Wednesday before our competitive game on Thursday. What is the goal for this team? Being strong in tournaments, or is more for the content? It's being strong in tournaments. I mean, both. The idea was that, okay, people, why would people watch us? And the conclusion was like, we want to win, and that's why people will watch us. And from a coaching point of view, like I want to do all the extra stuff around it and show you all the extra stuff around it. And that's why you should watch, rather than like doing mostly for the content and coaching kind of on the side, as it were. But both are fun, so we'll see. I think he means in the winter split. If you're talking about LCK, then one group so far ahead of the other. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually looked at enough games, to be honest, to know about that and know if, again, it comes back to this side choice too. Looking forward to the LEC review. Yeah, I will start it fairly soon, I think. So what I'm going to do is, if there's any more questions, I can answer those quickly. And if not, I'll take a few minutes. I'm going to turn off the YouTube stream and then turn it back on, because that then will separate the VODs properly and a bit more nicely. And then what we'll do is we will look at the LEC games from yesterday. So I can't co-stream, of course, don't have co-streaming rights. So what I'm doing instead is I want to offer something a little bit different to someone who's just watching it along with you. And instead we'll like pause, we'll skip forward. For example, with drafts, I'm not going to watch the draft happen. I'm going to go to the end and then we'll talk about the draft, because I'm not going to wait 5 minutes for it to do that. And we'll skip forward and skip back and all those kind of things. And you can ask any questions in the chat. What I'm kind of aiming for is useful for me, of course, to just see what's currently going on, but also hoping it can be useful for you guys in your games, probably more likely your team games than your individual games, to be quite honest. So if there's a Clash tournament coming up, we'll make sure we do some Clash specific things to look at. But that's the hope. But we'll see. We'll try it today and we'll see. And I'm going to hopefully do it every day for LEC, but also every other day for a different pro game. And what I'll do is I'll just do a poll in the chat of what game I should look at from LCK or LPL, as long as it happened the day before. Then I can look at it and analyze it. Can I ask what AD options are there for mid? There's this tank Jace thing, or flex build Jace, I guess, which is really obnoxiously strong. There's Corki, and we're now seeing like Smolder and stuff come back as well. Although ironically, I think the first person who played Smolder in the LEC didn't even build IE, so the buff had literally nothing to do with how they did that. So that's interesting. Most interested in Atakan setups. I feel like it's been a breaking point. Yeah, it has been. And it's been really interesting in scrims, the difference between Atakan and Baron. And I think actually not yesterday, but the day before, so Saturday, there was a game that was lost pretty much, if I remember, because people were treating Atakan as if it's Baron, and it's not Baron. It's further away from mid lane. So people, they had like, mid was pretty much neutral and top was really pushed in for them, like, so they had to collect it. And then one person went to do dragon and the enemy team just took Atakan because it's not at Baron, and if it was where Baron was, you would have time to do that, but it's further away. And so it's a really interesting like extra step, which is quite fun. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the be right back mode and I'll play a little bit of music while I turn off the YouTube stream, quickly go and grab a drink, and then come back and we'll get straight into the LEC. So thanks very much for the questions, and I will see you in a few minutes.